So here's going to be a summary of the digital Duracoat camo job that I painted here. I'll show you what I used and how I did it. If there's enough interest, maybe I'll do a actual walkthrough on the next time I do this. But these are the colors that I used: snow gray, white, arctic gray, and combat black. My clear coats, I did a mix of matte clear and this satin clear. Overall, I'd say this is a pretty good weekend project. They say you can work on it once a day, or just at least do it a few hours apart between different colors and putting your stencils on. I got a little ambitious here doing the 2 stocks, the 2 magazines, and the bipod. It was really pushing the limits of the stencils I had and my patience. If it was just 1 stock and a magazine, it'd be much more doable. It was pretty much full-time from Friday evening through Sunday, and I even did a little bit of touch-up work on Monday. But if it was just 1 stock, it would have had no problems at all. Maybe you can tell the difference here in the stocks. They all use the same colors, those 4 colors. The upper stock here, I use the Arctic gray as my final color, and the lower stock I use the snow gray as my final color. It all depends how many stencils you put on there and how much of your final color you want to be as your background color. I use this Pash airbrush set here. It's just kind of an entry-level single action, nothing fancy airbrush. It worked pretty well. Here it is. They give you this little holder here. I don't know how you're supposed to really use it, but I just nail it to some blocks of wood and it works pretty good. Tip I have is, when you start practicing and figuring out what works and what doesn't, take some notes here, as you can see I've done. That way when you come back to do another project or something, you remember what you did. I use this thing, actually I bought it probably 4 or 5 years ago, did a little bit of painting with it, and just picked it up again after years of not using it, and so those notes really came in handy. It comes with quite a few things here. You'll want to play around, see what works best. Some different tip sizes for spraying different amounts of paint, the different size bottles. I bought some extra stuff. I think it just comes like with these 1-ounce bottles and this little cup here for just small detail jobs. This is a 3-ounce cup. I got a couple of those. When you're doing full stocks and a whole bunch of pieces like I did, it comes in really handy so you're not constantly mixing paint. Here's the compressor I used. It's nothing fancy. It's just a nice, small, compact 6-gallon compressor. I set it for 20 to 30 pounds. I found less than that, it doesn't have enough air. More than that, your mixture isn't optimal. So 20 to 30 works real well. Okay, so step 1, in my opinion, is disassembly. Some people just paint over everything, but I like to disassemble fully. Just a cleaner look to me. You'll notice the difference between these 2 stocks. One is fully put back together, this upper one here. You see the butt pad, the grips, all the little hardware, all the little screws and everything. Whereas this one is still masked off from disassembly. See the grip's not on it. Butt pad is still masked off. No hardware in it. So disassemble as far as you can and then get to cleaning. One piece of advice I have here is try whatever you're doing on some practice pieces first. So if you've got just extra parts laying around, I just use an old handguard, an old grip here. Try out your colors, try out the templates, try out your clear coats. That way you kind of know going into it what it's going to look like, and you can adjust if you don't like it. Once you start cleaning here, wear some gloves so you're not putting your oils back on this. You want to keep them clean, otherwise the paint doesn't stick nearly as well. So I wipe everything down with acetone. It gets all the oils off. dries quickly. And then I'll scuff it up with a Scotch-Brite pad. Gives it just a little bit of texture and makes it easier to stick to. And then I just blew it off with some air, you know, get all the little dust and debris off of it, and then you're ready to paint. Another tip here is to order some color samples after you figure out what kind of color scheme you want to go with. Look online what other people have used and what they look like. You can order these individual chips, or you can get this color book here that has, what, 105 of their colors on it. They've got more than that, but they say these are their most popular colors. They're different collections here, so that'll give you a good idea what they actually look at instead of just looking at a computer screen. So now it's time to start mixing your first color. They say to use a light color first, so I use white as my base color. You use a 12:1 paint to hardener mixture ratio, so I use these syringes here that have both ounce and milliliters on them. You can use spoons or cups or whatever, but this is a super easy way to make sure you're accurate. I was doing both stocks, the bipod, and both magazines, and it was taking 72 milliliters of paint, so 6 milliliters of hardener. What is that? 2, maybe 3 ounces total. So mix it up. Shoot your base coat there. You do it in about 2, maybe 3 coats, depending what your background is. I think it took 3 light coats of white to get everything covered. After your first coat, let that dry for 2 to 3 hours at least, and then apply your first set of stencils. So I've done a couple of these jobs. I've used both the Lauer weaponry stencils here, and these yellow ones are from Freedom Stencils. I like those a lot more for a couple of reasons. The Lauer weaponry ones, they don't give you nearly as many. They just come in these kind of sheets that have like 2 on each of them. The bigger ones have just the 1 piece to them. I ordered 2 packs, and that barely got me through a set of AR furniture. So the stock, 4-end grip, I think I did a bipod and a couple magazines. These Freedom Stencils, they give you 6 sheets, and so they're just full of these little pieces about that big. But as I alluded to earlier, I was really pushing the limits of what these 6 pages could do. So if you were doing just 1 stock or 1 stock and a couple magazines, you'd be all right. But because I did 2 stocks and I did quite a bit of stenciling, you can see I had to resort to cutting them all up. So I don't have a good example here, but these used to be full pages with a whole bunch of these just all over it. About halfway through, I realized I wasn't going to make it, so I had to start hacking these up and making my own little tiny ones here. It was okay. It was just really laborsome, took a lot longer. I definitely would have ordered 2 packs if I knew that was going to happen, save myself a lot of time and effort. So take that into consideration. The other thing is, these are pretty old here. The first time I used these was that 4 or 5 years ago, and I remember them having a little bit of trouble sticking. I didn't have any trouble with the Freedom Stencils, so I think the adhesion is quite a bit better with those. Going around these rounded edges and some of these parts that move, they do come up a little bit, but not nearly as much as the Lauer ones did. After you're done all your colors with your male templates, you can do your female templates if you want to accent. For example, I had a big white splotch on my stock here, and I wanted to blend in a little bit more, so I used female on these 2 black pieces just to cover it up a little bit. The Lauer stencils do a really good job of that because they're on these little half pages, so they cover up the overspray really well. If you don't have those, I made my own out of the Freedom Stencils. So stick them together and cover them up with blue tape, and you basically have the same thing. after you've got all of your females done, I clear coated this thing to give it a nice sheen and protect it. So same ratio paint to hardener, 12 to 1, through some just trials that I did. I ordered a couple different clears. I have this satin clear and matte clear. I ended up mixing them, so I did 2 parts satin to 1 part matte, and then hardener also. Turned out pretty good in my opinion. That's about it.